insulting the modesty of a woman. क्या होता है modesty? Even if a boy doesn't say anything or a group of boys just standing and looking at that girl, उसे पता है मेरी modesty को insult किया जा रहा है. As a boy, for me to say this is very difficult. But I can tell this to you as a father. I can tell this to you as a husband. I can tell this to you as a son. That when that modesty is touched upon and somebody tries to insult it, the girl knows it. A very, very steady gaze from top to bottom on your body is a gesture with an intention that you notice it. That's really, really, really an offense. And an offense capable of being punished up to 3 years, remember. Now, a man who was looking at that woman now decides to keep his hand on a part of her body that she is not comfortable with an intention for her to know that he has done it. It need not be on my private parts. It can be anywhere on my body. You have now crossed the line to outraging the modesty. The law wants to deter that person at every stage and warn that man, don't do this. Because your every act of aggression towards a woman sexually will be treated with a higher degree of punishment and a higher degree of scrutiny to prevent a man from committing the ultimate act, which is to take over the will of a woman. And therefore, at every single nuance, the law stops you. So moving to a little more aggravated form of insulting the modesty of a woman. And ये 3 शब्द याद रखना, 3 भी नहीं 2 ही शब्द याद रखना इस वाले सेक्शन में. This is section 79. Insulting the modesty of a woman. क्या होता है modesty? कौन बताएगा modesty क्या होता है भाई? चलो modesty पढ़ते हैं. मैडम आप बताओ. Yes, you. Yes, you. No, the one behind you. ये आप बैठे हैं ना, आपका नाम क्या है? आपके पीछे. हाँ. श्रेयांशी, क्या होता है modesty बेटा? आसान नहीं है, मुझे मालूम है. आई एम नॉट सेइंग इट्स इजी. बट अगर मैं तुम्हें बोलूं नहीं, ये एक कोई एक्सटर्नल एक्ट नहीं है. मॉडेस्टी इज व्हाट एग्जिस्ट्स, इज व्हाट दे से. डिग्निटी, ओके, यू कैन से डिग्निटी. हाँ बेटा. हाँ, तो व्हाट वाज योर नेम? सॉरी, व्हाट्स योर नेम बेटा? भूमि. तो भूमि कहती है बस हमारी एक अपेक्षा है मॉडेस्टी कि कोई हमें हमारे साथ बदतमीजी ना करे, हमें छेड़े ना. टू हर दैट इज मॉडेस्टी, विच इज नॉट रॉन्ग. बट बार बार ये वर्ड यूज होता है कि यार लेडीज को छेड़ दिया, लेडीज की मॉडेस्टी, लेडी की मॉडेस्टी को इंसल्ट कर दिया. हमें कभी समझ नहीं आता मॉडेस्टी क्या है, बट हमें पता है बड़े अच्छे से, राइट? वी नो. अगर हाँ, कैरेक्टर जैसे फॉर एग्जाम्पल दो हमें. चलो. हाँ हाँ, तो कैरेक्टर पे कमेंट करना मेरी मॉडेस्टी की इंसल्ट है. मॉडेस्टी इज अ लार्जर फ्रेमवर्क. कैरेक्टर ऑफ अ वुमन इज एन इनहेरेंट पार्ट ऑफ दैट लार्जर फ्रेमवर्क, इज व्हाट आई विल से. ऑनर, यस. डिग्निटी, ऑनर, डिसेंसी, persona, okay. Freedom of vanity, very nicely said, yes. Sexual integrity is a very good word to say this. But मजे की बात पता है क्या है? Whichever definition you all give, हम सबको पता है कि हमारे अंदर एक inherent modesty होती है, और जब वो violate होती है ना, the girl knows it. Even if a boy doesn't say anything or a group of boys just standing and looking at that girl, उसे पता है मेरी मॉडेस्टी को इंसल्ट किया जा रहा है. और एज अ बॉय फॉर मी टू से दिस इज वेरी डिफिकल्ट, बट आई कैन टेल दिस टू यू एज अ फादर, आई कैन टेल दिस टू यू एज अ हस्बैंड, आई कैन टेल दिस टू यू एज अ सन, that when that modesty is touched upon and somebody tries to insult it, the girl knows it, the woman knows it. But interestingly also, हाँ बेटा,
सर जब आपने डिग्री बनाई थी जिसको लॉ प्रोटेक्ट करता है तब आपने एक टर्म यूज किया था कि पीस ऑफ माइंड को प्रोटेक्ट करता है. सो इफ वी से कि कोई भी कमेंट या एक्शन जो मेरे पीस ऑफ माइंड को अफेक्ट कर रहा है जिसकी वजह से आई एम बीइंग डिस्टर्ब, वो मेरी मॉडेस्टी आउटरेज होती है.
नहीं, मैं वहां तक नहीं जाऊंगा. देखो, पीस ऑफ माइंड ना फिर भी कैन बी फॉर अ लॉट ऑफ रीजंस. अगर कोई बंदा आपको परेशान कर रहा है, कोई सेक्सुअल कलर्ड रिमार्क नहीं कर रहा है, नॉट गोइंग ऑल द वे टू योर सेक्सुअलिटी, सेक्सुअल इंटेग्रिटी एज दैट सिस्टर ऑफ माइंड डिसाइडेड टू टेल अस एज अ डेफिनेशन, वो मेंटल पीस तो डिस्टर्ब कर रहा है, बट इज इट गोइंग ऑल द वे टू योर मॉडेस्टी? वी मे हैव टू थिंक. So therefore the law has used the word modesty, and this question was also faced by the courts कि क्या है ये modesty. Or before I answer you what the court said, I first want to ask you another question. ए, लड़कों की modesty नहीं होती क्या कोई? तो उसके ऊपर प्रोटेक्शन क्यों नहीं है? क्या लड़कों की कोई modesty नहीं हो सकती? हो सकती है. तुम्हारी modesty नहीं है भाई, कोई modesty है तुम्हें, तो लॉ क्यों नहीं प्रोटेक्ट कर रही है उसको? बिकॉज वी रेड आर्टिकल 15, एंड फॉर दोज ऑफ यू हु डिड नॉट हैव द बेनिफिट टू डिस्कस विद अस द लास्ट टाइम, दिस इज अ स्पेशल लॉ फॉर अ सेक्शन एंड कैटेगरी ऑफ सोसाइटी. द लॉ प्रिज्यूम्स द वे आवर सोसाइटी इज स्ट्रक्चर्ड, वी मे हैव दैट मॉडेस्टी, बट ईदर द लॉ थिंक्स दैट वी आर केपेबल ऑफ प्रोटेक्टिंग इट, और द थ्रेट टू इट इज नॉट एज वाइटल so as to create a law that protects it. But the beauty of the law this time is, and that is where I really appreciate what BNS has done, is that earlier a man could only outrage or insult the modesty. Now a woman can also do it. So woman can also outrage the modesty of another woman. Interestingly. And to tell you what modesty means, I had approached my colleague and my very worthy friend, she is here today, Payal Gupta, and she worked the whole night to tell me what modesty is. Do you want to tell them or should I tell them on your behalf? Can you just give me my phone? So she sent me the research this morning, and I told her that why don't you tell me modesty नाम की चीज क्या है, ये मेरे को थोड़ा समझाओ. I want to get deeper into it. So she sent me a very nice note. I'll just read it out to you. And that will probably clarify to you what modesty is. The Honorable Court in State of Punjab and Major Singh said, this is a Supreme Court 1996. So abhi recently we have not awakened to a reality of modesty is. The court has interpreted this multiple times before. I am just reading a landmark verdict. The Honorable Court held that essence of a woman's modesty is her sex. The modesty of an adult female is writ large on her body. Young or old, intelligent or imbecile, awake or sleeping, the woman possesses a modesty capable of being outraged. And whoever uses criminal force to her with an intent to outrage her modesty commits an offense punishable under 354 at that time. The culpable intention of the accused is the crux of the matter. Then the court also said that this modesty, for it to be outraged, the intent of the accused matters, and the modesty is the woman herself. Her sexuality, like, and I really like the word sexual integrity. So whichever situation a woman is, whether she is in a private moment, sleeping, awake, there is an inherent modesty to her by virtue of being a woman. And because if somebody wants to violate her sexuality for being a woman, is trying to act against her modesty, is trying to outrage or insult her modesty. I'll give you a very small example. One of our friends here, any girl, can be any one of us, she's decided to go to a college function and she's wearing a dress which is typically a little body hugging dress. Okay? She's standing minding her own business. 5 men, not speaking a single word, not making eye contact, constantly gazing at her. She knows they've not committed anything, they've not said a single word, they've not passed a gesture, they've not even moved a muscle of their face, but staring at her. Their eyes are moving around from top to bottom on that woman. Are they insulting her modesty or not? The girls will tell me. Yes, you feel extremely uncomfortable, you feel extremely violated. You know, you feel that you could read the intent of that man in his eyes. And that, my friends, is your modesty. That this stare would have not come had I been a boy. You understand? And therefore, that is modesty, and that is how intimate, and I would not say complex, but I would say how nuanced the word modesty is. And that is why the legislature has chosen to use the word modesty. Now what happens? Whoever, remember, whoever, the ones who were not there the last time, whoever means a man and a woman both can do it. You don't require a man to do it, a woman can also do it to you. Intending to insult the modesty of any woman utters a word, makes a sound or gesture, or exhibits any object in any form, intending that such word or sound shall be heard or that gesture or object shall be seen. Intention चाहिए कि वो जो अगर मैं I am making a glance at a woman without intending for her to notice it, I am not insulting anybody's modesty. If I have stolen a glance on a beautiful woman, not stealing her modesty. As long as my intention is not for her to see that I am trying to do this. And the girls here will understand the meaning of this. I am not wanting you to see this. Look, we all have, किसी ने vanity शब्द use किया था. Who was that person? I really liked it. Who was that? Vanity. We as a human being, as a woman, have the right to dress up and have the right to feel good about ourselves, have the right to put makeup on. Not with people to show us that their intent is to insult me, because I've done it. If somebody is stealing a glance, calling me beautiful in their mind without me wanting to know it, that's my vanity. That's not my modesty being insulted. But the moment I want those words or those gestures to be seen by you, I am trying to insult your modesty. Or intrudes upon the privacy of such woman. If I am intruding into your privacy, shall be punished with a simple imprisonment for a term which may extend to 3 years, or also with fine. So 0 to 3 and fine, depending on the degree and the aggravation of the act. That's what it is. I have tried to put it simply for you. In this case, nobody has touched you. Remember, there is nobody who has laid a hand on you, but still committed an offense worthy of being punished by 3 years. Remember, something that all of my friends here who are women, who tolerate on a daily basis, those are offenses that you tolerate which have a punishment capable of being punished up to 3 years. It's not a joke. The offender does not touch your body. He or she now speaks, gestures, signals, or intrudes into your privacy. That's good enough. With the intention that you know that that person is trying to invade into your privacy, or make that gesture, or make that sound, or make anything. A very, very steady gaze from top to bottom on your body is a gesture with an intention that you notice it. That's really, really, really an offense. And an offense capable of being punished up to 3 years, remember. So next time, as students of law, to all my young friends and sisters, I will tell you this is not to be tolerated. Okay? You will not let it swing by. The law allows you that right. And the law denies men that right, that they can do this with the intention that the woman notices it. Because that shows your intention to not let the other sex be comfortable in a social place or a setup, which is not what the law intends, which is not the kind of society we want to build. Is that clear? Yes. बेटा मैंने बोला it is both the genders. It said whoever. You missed that point. I clearly said whoever. It can be a man or a woman. You're absolutely right. But the other question is, can this happen to a man today? No. Is that an offense? No. If a woman does this to a man, that's not an offense. But whether a man or a woman doing this to another woman or a female, it is an offense. Now, another point that I want to put to you, my dear law students, is what about transgenders? What about the third gender? We don't speak about it, right? Look how normal it is for us to not speak about it. The question is, आदमी ने किया तो, ladies ने किया, लड़की ने किया तो, but the question is, what if a transgender is the subject of this ridicule? Where do we go? And we know, there is a whole spectrum of preferences that people have, LGBTIQ, and it goes on, and they face this on a daily basis. What is the law doing about it? Do we need this law to be transformed to also include transgenders within its fold, if not men at least? Something that you all need to ponder and work on as the future lawyers of this country. All right? Give it a thought, read about it, and you will understand how common it is and how much are the transgenders harassed and embarrassed on a daily basis without the protection of these laws. Moving forward. अब देखो हमने पढ़ा इंसल्टिंग द मॉडेस्टी. अब उसको एक डिग्री हायर बढ़ाते हैं. And like I told you, everything will move as a spectrum. Read the laws as a spectrum and you will never forget. Less intensity, less punishment. Higher intensity, जैसे जैसे intensity बढ़ेगा, punishment will increase. तो insult से outrage पे आ गई बात. Now, and I'm taking the example of a man, but it's gender neutral again. Don't mind me only using an example of a man. Now, a man who was looking at that woman, staring at her body, top to bottom, with an intention for her to notice it, now decides to keep his hand on a part of her body that she is not comfortable with. Let's say he puts his hand on the bottom of that lady now with an intention for her to know that he has done it. The act of insulting the modesty is now converted into an act of outraging the modesty. This is outrageous. One is you are looking at me with gestures, you are wanting those gestures to be noticed by me. And the second is that you have the audacity to place your hand on my body. Only placing your hand on my body, it need not be on my private parts. It can be anywhere on my body. The offense becomes outrageous and therefore outraging my modesty. So instead of only insulting, you have now crossed the line to outraging the modesty. And therefore, the section reads as follows. Whoever, again, does not matter boy or a girl, assaults or uses criminal force to any woman. Now I was trying to tell you what an assault is. Now who was my friend who was discussing assault? You were? अब यहां पे assault क्यों बोला है? सोचो. अच्छा कौन बताएगा assault क्यों बोला है यहां पे? assault पढ़ा था ना हमने? हाँ बताओ. करेक्ट. असॉल्ट क्या बताया था हमने? अ जेस्चर which could be an aggressive gesture, it could also be a sexual gesture, something that shows. So the man has not put his hand on your body, but through his gesture shown to you that he's about to put his hand on your body. That act itself is enough to dramatically change the nature of the offense. Dramatically. From insulting to outraging. Look at the punishment, 1 to 5. There it was 0 to 3. अब 1 साल की सजा तो मिलेगी ही मिलेगी. तो imagine the degree only by moving his hand or about to move his hand पे the act changes because the nature of apprehension in the mind of that woman will change dramatically. एक पॉइंट पे शी इज ओनली नोइंग कि यार ये खड़ा है बदतमीजी से घूर रहा है, बट दैट्स ओके. बट द मोमेंट शी फील्स कि ये उसके परस्यूट में मेरी तरफ बढ़ सकता है, द डेंजर इन द माइंड ऑफ दैट वुमन विल ड्रामेटिकली चेंज. एंड देयरफॉर द लॉ अंडरस्टैंड्स दिस. एंड व्हाई एम आई टीचिंग यू दीस सेक्शंस लाइक दिस? सो दैट ऑल यू गर्ल्स अंडरस्टैंड हाउ मच हैज द लेजिस्लेचर थॉट अबाउट इट. This was Lord Macaulay in 1860. Nothing has really changed here, right? Except for a man to whoever, nothing has really changed. So Lord Macaulay at that time knew what goes inside the mind of a victim when she goes through all this. And he drafted these laws like this. And for your protection, and sometimes my real worry is that all of you do not even know this. Some of you also choose to sleep through it. But that's okay. You must wake and read this because it's for you. It's not for the men in the room. Okay? So, the point that I'm making is that every nuance of action has a consequence in law. And I will take it all the way to the ultimate act of rape. And you will see how a degree changes it. और पता ही क्यों होता है? अच्छा, tell me, इतनी छोटी सी बात पे, this is worthy of discussion. मैं आपको, I was staring at you in a very, very lascivious manner and you are feeling uncomfortable. The moment I decided to gesture towards you, assault you so to say, the law says no, I will make this a very severe punishment if you dare. The law says don't you even dare. The one crime that you have committed is good enough. If you try to dare, I will stop you there. Why? इतना क्यों strict है law? The man can say, sir, मैं तो कुछ भी नहीं किया था. Why?
क्योंकि अगर इसकी gesture करने की हिम्मत होगी तो आगे जाके वो और भी.
Absolutely. The law wants to deter that person at every stage and warn that man, don't do this. Because your every act of aggression towards a woman sexually will be treated with a higher degree of punishment and a higher degree of scrutiny to prevent a man from committing the ultimate act, which is to take over the will of a woman. And therefore, at every single nuance, the law stops you. And all my students who are girls here and would want to become lawyers, please understand this very carefully. Of course, men, we have to understand because I told you the responsibility is on you. But the ones who are protected should also know about it. And also spread the word that there is so much protection out there, which we sometimes feel that we are helpless. And I'll tell you, this is not only the law that needs to protect, the society needs to feel protected. How many times will you have the strength and the courage to tell exactly what happened and read it in the manner that it is written in law? So please understand this and then try and understand the actions in the light of the way the law is legislated for you, because it's for your protection. So at every stage the law says no, you will not move forward an inch. The moment you try to create an aggravated situation, I will punish you more. That's what the law says, my friends. And from insulting it becomes outraging the modesty of a woman. That is how sacred the law holds the modesty of a woman. Some examples for you to know, but sorry, I think I did not finish that part. Intending to outrage or knowing that it is likely that it will thereby outrage her modesty shall be punished. So if he assaults or uses criminal force क्या होता है? वो मैं पूछना भूल गया. Criminal force क्या होता है? कहाँ डिफाइंड है BNS में? पढ़ो. माई ब्रदर से इज डिफाइंड, जो भी निकालेगा डेफिनेशन उसको पायल एक रिवॉर्ड मिलना चाहिए. हाँ 129. चलो पढ़ो.
Whoever intentionally uses force to any person without that person's consent in order to the committing of an offence or intending by the use of such force to cause or knowing it to be likely that by the use of such force he will cause injury, fear or annoyance to the person to whom the force is.
पहले फोर्स तो पढ़ ले भाई. क्रिमिनल फोर्स क्या है वो तो फोर्स से पता चलेगा ना. तो 128 पढ़ो पहले.
Section 128 force. A person is said to use force to another if he causes motion, change of motion, a cessation of motion to that other, or if he causes to any substance such motion or change of motion or cessation of motion as brings that substance into contact with any part of the other's body or with anything which that the other is wearing or carrying or with anything so situated that such contact affects the other person's sense of feeling, provided that the person causing this motion or change of motion or cessation of motion causes that motion, change of motion or cessation of motion in one of the following three ways, namely A. By his own bodily power, B. By disposing any substance in such a manner that the motion of change or cessation of motion takes place without any further act on his part or on the part of any other person, C. By inducing any animal to move, to change its motion or to cease to move.
बहुत बढ़िया. Now girls, this is for you to read. I'm sorry I missed this. I had forgotten that I have not spoken about this. A man, you go dressed to a party, all makeup on, you're feeling good about yourself. Your self of vanity is at its peak. You expect to be comfortable in that gathering. A man picks up a glass of water and throws at you. What has he done? He has used criminal force on you. And now I'll explain you with the section and you will understand. आप बोलोगे पानी का गिलास डाला मेरे ऊपर और उसने जोर से नहीं फेंका है. He has just spilled it on you. He's just spilled a glass of water on you. The law says a person is said to use force to another if he causes motion. He causes motion, change of motion or cessation of motion. या तो वो मूवमेंट पैदा करेगा या मूवमेंट को रोकेगा या मूवमेंट की डायरेक्शन चेंज करेगा. अगर ये तीन चीज कोई कर रहा है then he is said to be using force on the other person. Then, or if he causes to any substance such motion or change of motion or cessation of motion as to bring that substance into contact with any part of other's body. Now let's say he does something to your clothing and that clothing is in contact with your body and he puts something on that clothing. Let's say somebody drops a drop of ink on your clothes. May not sound like an offense, but that is then also in contact with your body, that clothing, and he has caused a cessation or change of motion in your dress, and therefore that is force being used upon you. It may not sound literally force, but law says this is force. And God forbid if the man has done it at a place in your body where you feel that your modesty is being threatened, then he has committed the act of outraging your modesty. 1 to 5. Dropping an ink on a woman's clothes in a manner that outrages her modesty. 1 to 5. Remember this. Criminal force. One is he's gesturing, assaulting. One is he's using criminal force on you. Or anything that is in touch with your body. It says, and anything so situated that such contact affects that person's sense of feeling. If there is anything by your side, but he does something to that object and it affects your feelings, is said to have used force. Agar if I'm standing in front of you and I punch the wall really hard, will your feelings change? To tell you that I'm capable of punching this hard, will your feelings change? Yes or no? I am using force. I have not touched you, I have not said a word, but I am using force. And that, my friends, is the beauty of reading law. The law is that deep if you try to understand it. And coming back, a criminal force my brother had to read. He said, whoever intentionally uses force to any person without that person's consent in order to committing an offense, or intending by that use of such force to cause, or knowing it to be likely that by use of such force he will cause injury, fear or annoyance to the other person to whom the force is used, is said to use criminal force to the other. So if there is intention, with an intent to commit an offense, if somebody uses force, that will be read here. And anybody who assaults or uses force in order to knowingly or with the knowledge that likely he will outrage your modesty will be punished by 1 to 5, is what the law says. Aggravated form. So please understand, it takes one gesture from converting and insulting to modesty to outraging the modesty of a woman, and it is that nuanced. And the punishment and the severity of the offense changes dramatically. Now there is another degree to it, friends. What can be the next degree? Who wants to tell me? आप बताओ अगला डिग्री क्या है? My friend over there with a bottle, with a white cap. Yes, you, right behind you. Yeah, the one who's seriously reading something. No, next to you. Yeah, you. No, just behind you. Just behind you. Yes. हाँ बेटा, next क्या है इसमें? What is the next degree that you think there is? चलो कोई बात नहीं. Who will tell me what is the next degree of offense?
Act of rape.
हाँ?
Act of rape.
Act of rape नहीं. Or relating to marriage? हाँ? Harassment नहीं. Disrobing.
Section 76.
ये वाला क्वेश्चन डिस्कस कर लें या थोड़ी देर रुकें? सॉरी बेटा, इज इट फ्रेश ना? बहुत बढ़िया सवाल है, बट इसका जवाब भी तुमने खुद ही दिया है. देखो फिर से पढ़ते हैं एक बार. A person is said to use force on another if he causes motion. Intention की कोई बात नहीं है. तो I will be using force on you if I am joking around with my friends and accidentally you get pushed and shoved around, right? But if you look at criminal force, it says whoever intentionally uses force to another person. The intention counts. You said उसकी तो intent ही नहीं थी. The moment you say that, you take away criminal force. And if you look at the section reads as whoever uses criminal force, not force alone, beta. ठीक है? तो intention counts. So he has committed that offense, and if you read these sections carefully, you will be able to understand how. You know what? You've asked a very nice question. अब you are students of law, you have the liberty and you have the privilege to be in this lecture where we are talking about these offenses. Your teachers have kindly shared the platform to me to also come and discuss. They've also been teaching you. You're generally an educated person. You will be able to understand these nuances. But now imagine a girl who is not educated in law, who is traveling by bus every day. She gets pushed around, shoved around, touched, I don't know how many times a day during her journey. Whether she's going to work, whether she's going to her college, or wherever she's heading, because that's her daily life. There are two difficulties that all of us need to find ways to educate, the daughters of this country, the mothers of this country, and the sisters of this country. Is that the law gives them protection. The difficulty is they don't know it. For them, they have normalized this behavior in their everyday lives. And that's what makes me really sad. And imagine when these cases, imagine she has the strength, she has gathered the courage and the understanding to know that this is an offense. Who will believe her when she goes for the enforcement? If she goes to the police, कि सर बस में मेरे को किसी ने गलत तरीके से छुआ, उन्होंने कहा मैडम फिर बस में मत ट्रैवल किया करो, ये जवाब मिलते हैं. मैडम आपको धक्का लगा, आपको गलतफहमी हो गई होगी. मैडम आप ना ओवरथिंक कर रहे हो. मैडम ये सब तो नॉर्मल बातें हैं. ये जवाब मिलते हैं. And that is where the change needs to come in. So what you've asked me is a very fair question. And on the implementation, I'm not saying that we're doing a great job, but the idea is to go step by step and educate everyone. Don't let it go is what I'll say. Yeah? All right. Moving on. अभी करना है कि बाद में करना है? अभी कर लें? अच्छा, कौन मेरे को बताएगा? One of my female colleagues here, you will tell me, is this an offense? अभी ये जो अब कहाँ गए वो, ये भी एक बंदा घूम, ये जो है ना, ये जो इंडियन के हाथ में फोन, ये फोटो खींच रहे हैं आप सबकी. हाँ, is he committing an offense? आपने लेडीज की परमिशन ली है फोटो खींचने से पहले? करना क्या है इसका? हाँ, कानून हमारे पास है, सारे हम लॉ स्टूडेंट्स हैं, मैं तो लॉयर भी हूं. बोलो क्या किया जाए? बट क्या इसने ऑफेंस किया है मेरे दोस्त ने, आयुष ने? हाँ, और यार लड़के ही जवाब देते रहो. हाँ, तुम्हारे मतलब का लॉ नहीं है, ये लेडीज का लॉ है, इनको बोलने दो. तो आई वॉन्ट वन ऑफ माई फीमेल कॉलीग्स हियर टू टेल मी whether he has committed an offense. अभी तक इतना पढ़ लिया हमने, outraging the modesty तक पढ़ लिया, स्टॉकिंग पढ़ लिया, वॉयरिज्म पढ़ लिया, सेक्सुअल हैरेसमेंट पढ़ लिया, और अब हमने मॉडेस्टी का इंसल्ट और आउटरीच भी पढ़ लिया. अब एंजल मेरे को बताएगी कि ये ऑफेंस क्यों नहीं है. इतनी पढ़ाई में पता चल जाना चाहिए. बताओ. वो खींच रहा अभी भी तेरे सामने, देख वो हट नहीं रहा. हाँ हाँ,
और फिर उसके बाद outraging modesty, insulting modesty वाला कुछ यहाँ पे आएगा ही नहीं, because we are setting out in that manner.
देखो, your modesty carries with it wherever you are sitting, in whichever setting, sleeping, waking, eating, doing whatever you're doing, your modesty remains. ये अंडरस्टैंडिंग नहीं होनी चाहिए बेटा. The question is that he's taken a picture without your permission. Should that be counted as an offense? And if yes, then under what law? It calls for a discussion. And अगर हम ये नहीं समझेंगे तो क्या समझेंगे? अच्छा चलो, I will change the degree now. यहां पे तो आपको लग रहा है बड़ी ऑब्वियस सी बात है, हम एक लेक्चर में बैठे हैं, that lecture is being recorded. So this is a part of the recording. So they are recording students and us. Clearly there is no criminal intent. At least it doesn't appear to be so. We don't know what's going on in his mind though. But we'll assume in good faith. But let me take the example that is here on the screen. आप mall में हो, you wanted to shop, you decided to get dressed, go to a mall, and you are all by yourself enjoying your day. Now, there is a boy who looks at you, does not want you to know that he's looking at you, finds you attractive and beautiful. Basically, in his mind, he's appreciating your vanity, does not want to intrude on your womanhood, but still really likes you and finds you attractive. That person from a distance takes a picture only for his keepsake, that he wants to maybe look at you someday in that picture in the manner that you are roaming around, but has no other intention, doesn't even intend for you to know it. Now, in this situation, has the man committed an offense? Yes.
So basically, as we discussed in previous class, we know that when we look at the situation, in general, what we expect. Is it a thing that we expect to take a picture? Like that, so in this scenario, if we are in a mall and shopping, we do not expect ourselves to be clicked by any stranger. So for me, it's an offense.
Okay. She's saying my expectation is not to get clicked in a mall when I'm moving around doing my own thing. It's a private act that I'm committing or I'm going around with. So I don't want to be clicked. That's why I think it's an offense. Anybody who agrees or disagrees with this? Agree?
Because section 77 of BNS is very kind of whoever watches or captures the image of woman engaging in private act in circumstances where she would usually have an expectation of not being observed. The private act of or not being observed.
My brother is saying, sir, ये voyeurism हो जाएगा. Because voyeurism ये कहता है that a woman, when she is engaging in an act where she does not expect to be observed, reasonably expects her to not be observed, then the act will be considered as an act of voyeurism. But then remember that in the example of ghat that we discussed, where somebody is taking a bath at a ghat, which is a public ghat, right? Now, mall is a public place or a private place? Public place. The question will be whether a reasonable expectation to not be observed exists or doesn't exist in a public place. Because you are essentially at a public place. अगर आप जाके किसी कॉप को बोलेंगी या शिकायत लगाएंगी कि सर उसने बिना मेरी मर्जी के पिक्चर ले ली, वो क्या करेगा? What will the cop do? He will immediately take the person to task, right? Likely, in all likelihood, right? But ये तो तब जब आपको पता चला ना, जब आपको पता ही नहीं चला. My example was he is not even intending for you to know it. Just an admirer who wants to remain a secret admirer of the beauty of a person and wants nothing else from that equation. No expectation, no ill will. Only wants to take a picture and has taken it without your knowledge or consent, but has taken that picture and kept it to himself forever.
सर इसमें ये नहीं होगा उसका इंटेंशन है या नहीं है, बट आपने एक विमेन की पिक्चर ली है, उसको पता है कि नहीं है, that doesn't matter.
But she is in a public place, she can be observed.
तो सर ये तो हमने कभी भी डिस्कस किया था ना घाट वाले एग्जांपल में कि उसको पता है वो एक्सपेक्टेशन है या नहीं है, that doesn't matter. बट आप एक विमेन को क्यों कर रहे हो?
It doesn't feel right, correct? So you are right. Look, ideally, this is an act I have not been able to see under which law really will it be covered, frankly. And if any one of you can make a note on it, I will also give you Payal's email ID. You can write to her if somebody is willing to discuss and get into the details a little more. Frankly, I have not read the law where I can get it covered, right? But if it doesn't feel right, it shouldn't be done, is what I feel. Ultimately, if you know about it, you will not feel right, correct? And therefore it should not be done, is where I will stop it. Because if I've taken it without your consent and without your knowledge, life moves on, nobody gets hurt. But the problem is, and this is where I started with the fact that the law allows the leverage to all the girls to have no need for protest when it comes to protecting them. But it poses a responsibility on all the men to seek consent before any act of this nature. So therefore, the existence of consent is paramount in all actions. So therefore, legally or illegally, I think the right spirit of the law is that this should not be done. I am not advocating that there has to be a law made on this. I think this is the first act which usually goes unpunished, but nevertheless should be avoided, because this is in the spectrum an act that today goes unpunished, but tomorrow can have consequences, and even otherwise. This is, to me, for all the men here in the room, is a first leg of the spectrum, where I am doing the first act which is not hurting anyone, but she would not usually give consent nevertheless, and I have not taken consent nevertheless, right? So I must stop there and say that avoidable without consent. If I seek your permission, take a picture, no problem, right? But I think anything that doesn't feel right should not be done. But I fail to see a law that punishes this. And if somebody does, please let me know. Interestingly, is this an offense under the IT Act? सोच के बताओ, ऐसे नहीं सोचना.
Sir, if he is not publishing it anywhere or he is not making it public, so it's not.
Good point. Good point. But there are some more things. जब IT Act पढ़ेंगे तब इस क्वेश्चन पे दोबारा आएंगे. ठीक है? Whether it can be seen to be an offense committed under the IT Act. Let's review that question when we come to studying the IT Act, because otherwise we'll digress. Your teachers are already looking at me. It's 1:33 and I have a long journey to go. All right. Now we come to the third act in the spectrum of assaulting, in the spectrum of a woman's modesty being violated. Whoever assaults or uses criminal force to any woman or abets such an act. अब यहां पे अबेटर भी पनिश होगा. अगर कोई साथ में दोस्त खड़ा है जो इस बात को एनकरेज कर रहा है या उसके लिए एड दे रहा है या कंस्पायर कर रहा है, that's abetment with the intention of disrobing or compelling her to be naked. Only so if you are wearing, let's say, a dupatta, if he tries to take away that dupatta, that's good enough. That's good enough for the offense to be complete. Shall be punished with an imprisonment of description which shall not be less than 3 and extend to 7. So this is a 3 to 7 offense now. पहला 0 to 3 था, दूसरा 1 to 5 था, this is 3 to 7. Interestingly, in none of these offenses, a repeat offender is punished severely, like we saw in the case of sexual harassment, we saw in the case of voyeurism, we saw in the case of stalking. इधर नहीं है, क्यों? What is the reason? क्या reason हो सकता है? मुझे भी नहीं पता, मैं पूछ ही रहा हूं. The law does not put a deterrence on repeating offenses like these, while it does in the offenses which are at the left side of the spectrum. These fall somewhere in the middle, but still the law says नहीं, repeat offender के लिए कोई provision नहीं है यहाँ पे. The law remains silent on repetition of offenses, especially relating to modesty. I fail to understand why. And interestingly, there is no rigorous imprisonment still, except for sexual harassment, so far. Now, if you were to study them together as a spectrum, does it make logical sense on how the punishments are stacked out? Don't you think rigorous imprisonment, repeat offense should all exist here in this final act where the man has gathered, so either be whoever hai, the man or the woman has gathered enough courage to want to disrobe you and doing all the things that he or she was doing when they were insulting and outraging your modesty. अब हिम्मत और बढ़ गई है. And इस तीसरी हिम्मत को क्रॉस करने के लिए law says no, stop here now. If you don't stop here, things get extremely serious. Intent to disrobe, right? I will not delve on this much, but I will come here. ये टेबल देख लो एक बार. 79 says words and gestures, there is no physical contact. 74 says touching with a sexual intent, there is physical intent and the violation is your physical dignity. And the third one is actually trying to disrobe you or remove your clothes, which is an aggravated form of outraging your modesty, and this now touches your bodily integrity and not just your physical dignity. And that, my friends, is the difference of spectrum in these three offenses. Punishment wise also 0 to 3, 1 to 5, 3 to 7. And please remember, in one single act a person can do all three. But the law says no, we will dissect it. If a person has shown the courage to only do this, maybe we will be a little lenient. But if the daring goes step by step, because it happens step by step in a person's brain, if the person has felt emboldened enough to outrage the modesty of a woman and try and lay his hand on her body to disrobe her, that's good enough. For us to punish that person with at least 3 years, going all the way to 7. And that is, my friends, the next spectrum. The previous was sexual harassment, stalking and voyeurism. That's one spectrum. The second spectrum is insulting my modesty, outraging my modesty and disrobing me. And then comes the ultimate act, and that's the third spectrum, my friends, in the larger spectrum of offenses against women, which is the offense of rape, which now moves from my body to my free will. And that is why one of the most serious offenses in the IPC regime and now also in the BNS regime. And I will, rather than reading the sections, I will only read one section today. How much time do I have? Madam is looking helpless. On a lighter note, don't record this. Nobody would have wanted me to finish rape so soon as much as Madam right now. Huh? So, rape is not merely a physical offense. It's a violation of the victim's dignity, autonomy and personhood. Rape इतना serious offense इसलिए नहीं है because the act is aggravated. It is a serious offense because the consequences are also much more aggravated. When somebody tries to disrobe me, maybe my bodily integrity is at harm. But my entire personhood comes to harm when somebody tries to or actually commits the act of rape on a person. And therefore the seriousness. Now, there are certain differences, and some of this, I'm a student of Rahul sir, so some of these things I'm carrying from my notes. Exception 2 to 375 already, originally stated that sexual intercourse or sexual acts by a man with his own wife under the age of 15 is not rape. Now that has moved to 18. So 15 has now changed to 18. The law has realized that any sexual act if a man does to his wife, the wife should still be major. पहले ये था that any act of sexual intercourse done by a lady of less than 18 is rape, but exception was if a man does it to his wife and the wife is a minor, that's okay because child marriages happen. But the law says now, no, you have to bring the law of child marriage and BNS in sync. And therefore, even if you're married to another person who is a minor, the sexual act will constitute rape. It will be by all means rape if the wife is less than 18 years of age. That's a welcome move by the law. Then बिफोर आई रीड द सेक्शन, मुझे इसका मतलब बताओ. 2 मिनट इस पे लगाएंगे. मैडम, आई विल टेक 10 minutes. I can hold it here if you want and then have this later as you guide. हाँ, जनता की अदालत में पूछें भाई इसको पढ़ना है कि अभी आज रुकना है, क्योंकि मुझे तो पढ़ाने में मजा आ रहा है, तुम्हारा पता नहीं. बोलो. मैडम कह रही है छुट्टी हो जाएगी. यू हैव अ चॉइस. पढ़े? चलो ठीक है. अच्छा चलो फिर इच्छा और मर्जी पे बात करते हैं. तुम्हारी इच्छा है पढ़ने की कि मर्जी है पढ़ने की? हाँ, बड़ा इंटरेस्टिंग क्वेश्चन है. सो आई विल ट्राई टू वाइंड इट अप सून, डोंट वरी मैम. इच्छा और मर्जी में क्या फर्क होता है? विल और कंसेंट में क्या फर्क होता है? हाँ जी.
सर बेसिकली सब विल होते हुए ऐसा भी हो सकता है कि कंसेंट ना हो, विल फोर्स्ड भी हो सकता है, तो इन दोनों में ये बेसिक है.
अब तुम आर्ट वर्क पे मत कमेंट करो यार, मैंने नहीं बनाया, वो चैट जीपीटी ने बनाया है. मैं तो सिर्फ तुम्हें सिखाना चाहता हूं. Some girl has to tell me what is the difference between, and the men have to understand this. You said इच्छा हो सकती है, मर्जी नहीं हो सकती है, ऐसे नहीं. हम समझेंगे डीपली क्या होता है. हाँ बेटा बोलो.
Consent is giving a yes.
Very well said. So my friend here says that will is my marzi, which is internal, which is my wanting to do something, and consent is my expression of that marzi. Expression of that internal feeling is consent, but that internal feeling is will. My willingness comes from inside, consent is the external manifestation. Any other answer?
सर कभी कभार कंसेंट फोर्स भी हो सकता है और विल हो सकता है कि नहीं हो, लेकिन कंसेंट फोर्सली ऑब्टेन किया जा सकता है.
कंसेंट ऑब्टेन किया जा सकता है, विल कभी नहीं किया जा सकता. वेरी वेल सेड, वेरी वेल सेड. अग्री. और कोई डेफिनेशन विल और कंसेंट की? सॉरी,
Consent can be forced on you by pointing a gun on your head or something like coercion.
consent can be obtained by coercion, the will cannot be, right? हम नॉर्मली सुनते सिर्फ कंसेंट है, विल कभी नहीं सुनते. ऐसा क्यों? विल प्रूव नहीं कर सकते हैं, राइट? तो फिर क्या करा जाए? फिर तो अ मैन विल ऑलवेज बी कंफ्यूज्ड. कंसेंट को इसलिए प्रायोरिटी पे नहीं लिया है बाय द वे, बट ही सेज देखो सर मैं विल के बारे में तो जान ही नहीं सकता, वो तो इंटरनल है. मैं तो कंसेंट पे ही बेचारा रिलाई करके मैं आई एम बेसिकली वॉकिंग ऑन हाफ माई लेग, राइट? बिकॉज आई डोंट नो विल है कि नहीं है. कंसेंट तो मेरे को फिर भी शायद दिख जाएगी, विल तो नहीं दिखेगी, राइट? और उन जैसे आशिकों का क्या जो कहते हैं नहीं नाम ही हाँ है, वो भी तो है ना एक स्पेक्ट्रम हमारे बीच में. वो कहते हैं नहीं यार वो ना कह रही है, इसका मतलब हाँ है. So for us to know what is will and what is consent is the most important thing before we read the section of rape, right? अब ये क्यों है मैं बताता हूं. A man is said to commit rape if he penetrates his penis to an extent into the vagina, mouth, urethra, anus or the woman and makes her do so with him or any other person, or inserts to an extent any object or a part of the body not being the penis into the vagina so and so, manipulates any part of the body of a woman so as to cause penetration into the vagina so and so, applies his mouth so and so, and any other person, or makes her do so with him or any other person under the circumstances falling under the following descriptions: against her will, without her consent. अब इनके जो पैरीमटीरिया वर्ड्स हैं उनको भी देखो. इच्छा के खिलाफ और मर्जी के बिना, इच्छा के खिलाफ और मर्जी के बिना बोला है, इच्छा के बिना और मर्जी के बिना नहीं बोला है, इच्छा के खिलाफ बोला है। तो इवन इफ इच्छा इज नॉट शोन, इच्छा इज नोन, राइट, इसलिए उसके खिलाफ जाने की बात कही है, और मर्जी तो दिख रही है तो उसके बिना जाने की बात कही है। यू अंडरस्टैंड? सो ये दोनों टर्म इतनी साइंटिफिकली यूज्ड है, इफ यू आर एबल टू रीड देम इन द वर्ड्स दैट आर पैरीमटीरियल। With her consent, when her consent has been obtained by putting her or any other person on in whom is she interested in fear of death or hurt. Somebody said consent can be obtained by putting somebody in fear of coercion. With her consent, when the man knows that he is not her husband and the consent is given only because she believes that he is another man to whom she believes that she is lawfully married. With her consent, when at the time of giving such consent by reason of unsoundness of mind or intoxication or administration by him personally or through any other stupefying or unwholesome substance, she is unable to understand the nature and consequences of that to which she gives consent. With or without her consent when she is under 18, or when she is unable to communicate consent. For the so explanation, I think you all understand. Explanation 2 को एक बार देखो. Consent means an unequivocal voluntary agreement when the woman by words, gestures or any form of verbal or non-verbal communication communicates the willingness to participate in the specific sexual act. Provided the woman who does not physically resist the act of penetration shall not by the reason only of that fact be regarded as consenting the sexual activity, and a medical procedure is not rape, and a man with his own wife not less than 18 years of age is not rape. Now explanation पढ़ के एक बात सबसे ज्यादा क्लियर होती है, that she not saying a no and not doing anything else will not be presumed that there is consent. The only reason that she did not say no will not be read against the woman, and a rape can still happen. And the consent is defined as verbal, non-verbal communication which communicates the willingness of the woman to participate in the specific act. So willingness word comes again. So that external manifestation, whether stated or unstated, gives you an idea that she is not only manifestly consenting but also is willing. It has to communicate her willingness, otherwise she is not willing, and if it is against her will, it will still be rape. Now how many of you are confused? अब कोई मेरे को ये बात समझा सकता है that एग्जाम्पल लेते हैं. Two consenting adults are at a party. There is a gathering of people. Everybody is enjoying, having a good time. They are both slightly tipsy, right? And they decide to engage in a sexual act. The entire act proceeds in a manner where there is absolute clarity that they both wanted to do it. But the girl is still under the influence of alcohol. Now in this stage, later there is an allegation that this consent was not fair consent. What do you make of it? The law says that with her consent, when at the time of giving such consent by reason of unsoundness of mind or intoxication or by administration of any stupefying substance, she is unable to understand the nature and consequences of which she gives consent. That's what the law says. Now, during the act, let's add a little twist. And for this to be internalized and understood by all of us, it's very simple actually, if you don't want to complicate it too much, but let me just add a twist. During that act, the girl engaged into the act, no question about it, I'm just changing the facts a little bit, but at some stage the girl said, let's stop here. But then they both went all the way. How do you read it? Look, I told you, think about it while I tell you. I've just tried to express it in a manner that it gets internalized. We discussed that will is internal, consent is what she externally agrees to do. Now, I told you this, that the law does not require a woman to fight. It only requires a man to ensure that there is consent at all times. It only requires that. It does not want a woman to fight, say no, make gestures, or not say anything. The man has to ensure consent. So the duty is very heavily shouldered on the men of the country and not on the women, that at all times they need to be at guard, that they are giving consent. They don't need to do that. That's not the standard that the law requires them to do. Now, ऐसे पढ़ते हैं. This will help you understand. To every boy in this room and to also every student of law in this room, to every young girl in this room, there is only one way to find out if there is willingness and consent is only when she says yes. There is no other way, and she doesn't have to orally say yes. She has to either say yes at all times for any act that is being performed by the two people. At all times it has to be either a stated yes or an expressed yes in the form of her own self, which every boy knows and every girl knows. You don't have to really get into the definitions of it. Remember that. And the red flag is that a no means a no. And at that point in time, every person in this room has to understand that there is no other definition of no. And at that point in time, every man in this room and in the country and the one who is conscious that there is a law and wants to follow the law has to understand that there has to be a stoppage of the act. If there is a no, it can not be to engage in sexual activity, but any other act that you want. She is okay to engage in a sexual activity, but there are certain acts, and therefore the word in the statute says a particular act that she is not consenting. And that is the time when a no means a no, and a yes will always be a yes, whether expressed or implied, which will be known to the two consenting adults. And that's how you have to remember the definition. In every other way, there is no consent. That's how you have to read the offense, right? I will not go very far because I really see the pressure building. अच्छा, मुझे बस एक last बात बताओ. How many of you agree कि consent नहीं भी है, तब भी एक husband can have sexual intercourse with his wife and that should not be an offense in the country? Raise your hands who are in favor that it should not be an offense. And imagine, none of us. Now, that same question of marital rape went to the Honorable Delhi High Court. What happened? What happened? जोर से
husband can do sex with her wife.
नहीं, बड़ी क्वेश्चन गया दिल्ली हाई कोर्ट में सबसे पहले, और now it is referred to the Honorable Supreme Court because there was a split verdict. One part of the bench said कि देखो बात बिल्कुल ठीक है, marriage is not a license to have unconsented sexual intercourse with the woman. The other side of the bench did not disagree with this, but the bench said our society is not ready for this act or for this law. Because already there is a rising divorce rate, the other thing we will do is probably spiral it out of control by wives filing rape cases against their own husbands each time there is a fight. And therefore, maybe our society is not ready today. The matter still remains pending with the Supreme Court. Read that judgment very carefully if you really want to understand. Because if you want to really understand consent, understand it in the context of a marital rape. And that is when so if you really want to understand this subject deeply and tomorrow be criminal lawyers, please read that judgment, which was a split verdict between the two judges of the Delhi High Court. This is your homework. Now, to tell you more, I want to go a little deeper into this and teach you the aggravated forms of rape. Broadly, all of you understand it. The other thing is I want to take you to section 69, which is a new section, which says that a man who offers a favor of any kind to a woman and the woman consents for sex, that is still not consent and the man will be punishable as if he has committed rape. I also want to take you to certain procedural safeguards on how to protect information, how not to publish information. Now that should require me 30-35 odd minutes. I don't want to go on. So are you okay? We do it in the next class and club it with some other topic. Is that okay? I will keep this part aside, right? All right, then chutti. Thank you so much. All right. There is much more to this, but I think let's do it another day, another time.